Man, it's a great weekend of football we just experienced. I'm so super excited. We got Coley Mick in his. What is that? What are you?
This is Bandit from the Smash television series Bluey.
We got Cam Wolfe. He's coming in, man, dropping some knowledge. Reporter who just done report for 45 seconds. Got my Carolina Panthers. My Carolina Panthers. It's kind of like you own up on the team. We winning my Carolina Panthers. We losing. Hey, I work for NFL Network and the Carolina Panthers, right? But man, such an exciting game. You had the top three picks of this year's draft playing this weekend. What an outstanding game, low scoring because the defense was just flat out outstanding. Coach Frank Wright has really taken this week off of the play caller, right? And so he's conceded play calling to Thomas Brown. But some of the guys told me that I was really impressed, and I know Coach. The reason why Mr. Tepper, Dave Tepper, hired Frank Wright was his ability to manage. And they said the head coach, the CEO, Frank Wright, was firing on all cylinders. He had a pulse on both sides of the football and special teams. And I believe because of that, you saw a team that they still struggled, right? They're a young team. I think this is a 2-year process. And then hitting into the third year, it's kind of hitting your stride.
Steve, I love what you said there, and there's two things I want to add there, because I think, and some of this was the organization trying to hype up their fan base, but there was a lot of overselling this offseason, and I think there was initial expectation that you draft Bryce Young, and all of a sudden you're going to be a playoff team in year one. And I think that did them a little unfair with the expectations. They still have struggles on their offensive line. Their weapons aren't ready yet. They may have one of the worst receiving groups in the league as far as
Whoa,
weapons.
the
I'm sorry. I'm
worst.
sorry. I'm just trying to
He said
Goodness
one
I'm just
of.
trying to
gracious.
I'm just trying
One
to cut
of.
to it. I'm just trying to cut to it.
He
I
didn't
can't say
lie.
anything now.
It's just the reality. You may disagree, and you may disagree, and I respect that. You're the wide receiver wizard,
Hold on. So you're
but the
telling me you're not a
production,
yes
other,
man?
huh?
You're not a yes man? Is
Hey,
that what you're
I'm
telling me?
not. I'm
Oh
not.
my gosh. Holy
If you're looking
smokes.
for a yes man, you got the wrong man.
Oh gosh. Coley's not a yes man. You aren't a yes man. I need to get people different guests on here.
But I
Go
guess
ahead,
my
bro. I'm
overall
sorry.
point is that you got to give them time. Like any other team, we would have seen them draft a number one overall pick. You're thinking, we'll give them time. Let them time to develop. You remember how bad it was for Trevor Lawrence his first year, and now he's viewed as one of the best quarterbacks in the league. But because of the way that we're shaping this, Bryce Young's that, I think they had to sell people that his size wasn't a factor so much. Maybe they oversold how much they were ready to win in year one. And so I think you're right. It takes time to do that. But I also like what you said about Frank Reich, because so much of the noise I heard on social media was that, oh, well, we finally got to get rid of Frank Reich as the play caller because he's doing this poorly, he's doing that poorly. This isn't just about like Frank Reich being a bad play caller. This is what you said. It's so much pressure, so much responsibility to be both the play caller and the CEO at the same time. It's not, especially as a first year in the org. And so if he can free himself up to spend a little bit more time, managing a young team and allowing Thomas Brown to just handle that one aspect of the in-game play calling, I think it makes everybody better.
You look at the Carolina Panthers, the whole game as a whole, right? Right, just talking about the offense. Bryce Young was hit so many times; he was under duress, but also 6 sacks. Right, a lot of that pressure. The defense is generating so much pressure, and we're just saying pressure that counts as generated pressure on the stats. The Carolina Panthers on this couple of, in the next this year and next year, especially they're going to have a lot of capital in free agency to go out there, and you have to get some guys. What I believe is you have to have depth, right? Healthy competition who are going to you start because you had a good week of practice, not because of your draft status, not because you have a big contract, because you got it done this week against a Brian Burns, against a Derek Brown. Man, Bryce was only under center 17% of the time. And you hear the 17%, so I'm breaking it down. I'm going, man, really? How much is 17%? Bro, only 6 attempts that actually of play action. You got to get Bryce under center. You got to make sure teams cannot start to tee off and key off on you. And also, too, you got to give your offensive lineman a chance. I mean, you look on the right side, there are veterans. Those are guys who've been in the league, who know how to finagle, fix, trick. I don't want to say cheat, but you pull a little jersey a little bit right here.
Get away with a little something, yeah.
Yeah, get away with a little something. Have a good technique.
The offensive line is holding them back in a lot of different capacities. And the reality of it is the hardest thing on offense to do is to quickly build a good offensive line. Like to be able to build an offensive line that is ready to compete and contend with these young players is going to take time. Like Ike Ekwonu was a guy they invested a lot of resources on. He was a sixth overall pick last year, and he's really struggled in pass protection. You mentioned just his skill set as a run blocker, as a power guy. Last year, when they were having success, they were running the ball, downhill. That was their game. Icky could fire off. Now they're doing a lot of backward stepping, and you're seeing some of these guys take advantage of his uncertainty. And you're right. I think he's still going to have time. He's going to have to make it. He was their sixth overall pick. They're going to have him out there. But the reality is you're seeing him and some other guys struggle to transition to what the current offense is.
You have players that are going to be on your team because of whatever restrictions or whatever the scouting report was saying about those players, right? You get a guy who he fits in our system. But man, first of all, CJ Stroud threw some passes in areas that you just don't see a young pup do. And Bryce Young did the same thing. Throwing the ball. Now, sometimes the defender made it difficult for the wide receiver, right? You could bring up this play against Jonathan Mingo. Jonathan Mingo runs a quick out. You got him. He gives a release, quick, uses his hands, goes out. But see just that little right? Just at the end, watch when Bryce throws it. He cannot completely follow through because someone is in his lap.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead and run the play. Look, those are the little small things they're just going to have to work out. I like this route by Mingo. He's in the slot, gives a head indicator, but this difference, he uses his hands, uses his body, comes back out, and then look at the yak. Most receivers, they see guys coming, and they're going to go down. Mingo, he's about that action. Watch what he does. He sees the guy. Watch him. Look. You see how he tries to give him some?
Yep.
That's what I'm talking about. That's the things those are the small little things that I'm watching. I'm saying, there's some receivers who they would have went out of bounds. They definitely wouldn't have saw a guy and said, "Oh yeah, I remember you said something to me probably about 3 or 4 or 2 or 3 quarters ago." Now was my opportunity to go ahead and put my tea bag in your hot water and see how this is going to taste.
Well, also just having the awareness that someone could be coming from behind. I feel like you see so many, especially young receivers, cut back to the middle of the field, get hawked from behind, end up fumbling.
Or get fumbled like Douglas.
Exactly. They're not going back to the middle of the field. Everyone's got their eyes downfield. There's still 7 people chasing you down. So that was what was impressive to me there.
I love the growth that you're seeing these two guys come together with, Bryce and Mingo. Like Mingo early in the season, he just was not getting his reps. But as you see him go along the season, you see how their chemistry is growing more and more. And you mentioned just the O-line there. There was another play there, and I don't know if we have it, but I loved it in the second quarter of this game where Bryce spins out, like you talked about the pressure all day, but he spins out of a would-be sack and throws the ball down the left side. I think it was a wheel route to Adam Thielen, about 30 yards down the field. And it was one of the best plays I've seen Bryce throw like since he's been a pro. Because like you talked about, he was getting pressure all day. It's easy for a quarterback to get flustered. He stuck with it, stayed with his read, and made a throw. And that play, along with that last drive where I think it was 15 plays, 86 yards, first down after first down, leading them to the game-winning field goal. Those are things you want your franchise quarterback to do. So I think you're seeing more and more growth from number 9.
Yeah, when I'm looking and watching the Carolina Panthers, you can see hope. You can see that this team is on the up. They're not going to move as fast as the fan base would like them to be, but they're moving and they're making strides. They have some good players. They have some guys that maybe would flourish with some veteran leadership to kind of help them and guide them, right? Coaches can coach you all day. But when you have somebody who understands and knows, and he's right next to you in the huddle, and he can say, "Hey, this is what's going on. Hey, be careful of this. Watch this guy. Did you see what he does that?" That's what that sideline conversation is. And you talk about it in the huddle, in between games. What do the Panthers need to address? I think they just need to they need to mix it up, get a little bit more, some guys that aren't 23, aren't 24 years old, maybe get some guys 27, 28 years old who have been at some other teams, who are ready to step up, who are tired of watching, who are hungry to to put their name in the hat to say, "Hey, I'm ready. I am ready to hit this league by storm." And then the last thing, and here's what I mean: Derek Brown, who's he's a shade, he's a nose, he's a penetrating um, defensive tackle, but yet he leads the league, he leads the team with PBUs,
Yeah.
pass breakup.
That should never be the case, right?
But it just shows also he's not pass breaking up just in the shade in the middle. Look at him, engage,
That's a
gets
nice
up
one.
there,
Look at that.
understands, recognize what's going on, and then he goes ahead and gets his little 3-inch vertical.
You said you could slide a book under there. You can slide a book under there.
Yeah, not one of those not one of those old encyclopedias.
No War and Peace. Yeah.
Definitely no more.
Nah, Derek Brown. Derek Brown is a guy who's looking at a big time contract very soon. He's definitely established himself as one of the better defensive tackles in the league. And you mentioned it, as they moved him around, I think you've seen more of his pass rush potential. That was the big question: can he pass rush? Is he just a run blocker? I think the schemes allowed him to move around. He's showing he could be more versatile than just that gap plugging nose tackle. So that's gonna make him some money for sure.
Well, let's go ahead and go down right down 85 and hit the Atlanta Falcons. I'll
Let's do it.
mute my microphone as you speak because we shall not. I got to be careful.
Yeah.
I got to be
Yeah.
careful.
So
You don't want any more coaches
so,
yelling at you?
man, coaches, coming at me, players. I don't need that in my life.
So I will save Steve here and be his translator to an extent for
No,
this
don't
for this
translate.
period.
Don't speak for me.
So I'll give you guys some perspective.
Hey.
Me and Steve have had these conversations really the last several months about Desmond Ritter and the Falcons quarterback situation. Um, I have been of the belief that you give Desmond Ritter time, like Arthur Smith said, to show whether or not he's got the goods. And Steve has been very clear, as he has on a lot of these platforms, that he's not a big Desmond Ritter believer, and he knew that very early on. And so this week we saw Desmond Ritter get benched. Arthur Smith says it wasn't for performance reasons, but to me it very much looked like it was. But I will say this: like when we're talking to Falcons, Steve, you've been right on this, and I think it's a real
I almost
precarious
fell out
point.
my chair, but I had to catch myself.
Like Arthur Smith's at a really precarious point. I'm curious how he handles this because the Falcons have a good enough team to win the NFC
Yeah, they
South,
do.
minus the quarterback position.
Mm.
And so the reality is, I don't know if Taylor Heineke is going to be good enough or better. But the problem is, we've seen enough in 8 games, at least I have, that makes me wonder if Desmond Ritter is. And so when they pulled Desmond Ritter, it was almost like a finally from a lot of the Falcons fan base. Like, we've been waiting for this finally. finally we get a chance to see someone else. And they ended up, didn't end up like working for him, but they ended up moving the ball a little bit better. They didn't have as many turnovers. Desmond Ritter's turnovers have been an issue. His turnovers have been a huge issue. Now, I will say there's been glimpses of good things of Ritter. Like, it hasn't been all awful.
No,
But
I don't think he's awful.
yeah, he's
I do.
shown some good glimpses at times. But the issues, the turnovers, the lack of consistent offensive success have been the overwhelming takeaway when you watch the Atlanta Falcons. And a team that has Bijan Robinson, that has Kyle Pitts, that has Drake London, although I know that's not your favorite cup of tea.
I don't have a problem.
I'm just saying,
with,
but they
don't
have
have a
more
problem with-
talent than their
Yes,
offense
but
shows.
that's what I'm. But that's my whole point when we were talking in the summer.
hmm
They have the talent.
Right?
Quarterbacks are supposed to make organizations better, but also organizations have to put people and players around the quarterback that can help him grow as well. My assessment with Drake London isn't he can't play. He can play. He's not going to develop into the player that you scouted because your quarterback play, your offense is built around running the football. You can't learn how to run better routes, run blocking. And that's my thing with that I was trying to say, and I didn't do a good job, but trying to say why I didn't think Drake London. It has nothing to do with Drake London's skill set. He has the skill set, but everything around him is not built to help him advance and speed up the process.
He's not at this stage of his career. He is not built to carry an offense as your
Nothing
top
wrong with
receiver.
that. I
That's
don't.
fine.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know too many rookies who have come out of the gate carrying an offense. I mean, Randy Moss was balling his rookie year, but then he also played with who?
Chris Carter.
Yeah.
And he had an offensive mind that knew how to help him, right? So it all has to go together. You can't just throw everything in there, blend it up, and say, "Oh, it's a smoothie," and it ain't garlic and kale and ginger and turmeric and just all the nasty stuff.
I think you make a lot of good points. But the reality is the way this team has been built, Drake's probably going to have to be the number one. They spent a first round pick on him, Kyle Pitts, and Bijan Robinson. So that's going to be their core of offensive weapons, for better or for worse in the future. And so I understand your issues on the limitations of maybe Drake London's potential as a true number one. I don't know if we can truly tell how good each of these individual playmakers are until they figure out their quarterback situation.
Yeah.
Which the reality is, fans can debate between Desmond Ridder, Taylor Heineke. I don't know if either of these guys are going to be the future in 2024 or beyond, right? So the whole idea of Arthur Smith giving Desmond Ridder have a chance, I actually understand that to an extent, because if neither of these guys are probably going to be my future quarterback, I'd at least rather give the young dude every chance to prove me right in Arthur Smith's case, or prove the world wrong.
But you also are now jeopardizing the wide receivers' growth and development. So it's like you're gonna ride with your guy at quarterback, but you're gonna stunt my growth as a wide receiver. Drake London can play. Drake London can't throw the ball to himself.
Yeah, you don't know what Arthur Smith's going to call. He had Jonnu Smith throwing passes in the red zone. He might be throwing it to himself. The Nelson Muntz offense. He might be breaking that out next week.
Yeah. Drake London might lead the team in carries next week.
You never know.
Yeah,
You never know.
Yeah, I'm right. I'm just going down the reason why. Drake London will be fine. He's gonna be a playmaker in this league. It's gonna take him longer to be a playmaker in this league because of the quarterback play. If you're hanging with Desmond Ridder.
What's the buzz from Falcons fans right now? Because there's still a contingent of them that's upset that they passed on a certain quarterback who may be very available. Obviously, it's trade deadline day today. I don't think that's going to happen today, but this offseason, you're looking at a couple of teams picking towards the top of the draft that are probably going to be moving on from quarterbacks, a la Justin Fields. Is this a guy you've heard with any sort of connection to the Falcons moving forward?
Yeah, I've been told definitively that the Falcons are not a Justin Fields team. They were
Interesting.
not huge fans of him coming out of the draft, and I don't think that's changed. Now, you ask me, Justin Fields will be an upgrade over what they have, but I'm not the one making the decision, and so I'm just telling you what they believe and what I've heard. But the reality is, whether as much as they love Desmond Ritter, and Arthur Smith really does, like I've told you guys this when we were here this summer, he told me things about Desmond Ritter and his confidence, and I was like, "Come on!" I told him to his face, "Arthur, and
What you tell him to
but
his face? What you say there? Speak with
I
your
said,
chest.
I said, why? Like I said, that's why is your
He said,
confidence like
he said
At,
with his
why?
face,
at
why?
quarterbacking? You said at
Yes, like
quarterbacking,
why?
yes?
Like give me reason, because like you see things that I don't see, and I never pretend to be smarter than any coach, right? And so like what do you see? Like tell me. And he talks about his toughness, his ability to shine in moments like third down and fourth quarter, and the fact that he never feels like he'll back down from a challenge. Which these are all great intangibles. But to me, when you turn it over the ball, a lot of that becomes minimized, at least in my book.
Well, it's like there are certain teams, and I'll stick with my Patriots because I don't want to just pick on the Falcons. There are certain teams that just don't get it with certain positions, and when you're like, we're a big Desmond Ritter team, we hate Justin Fields, like that should be a red flag in your own brain to be like, all right, we're not seeing the ball right, we're not seeing this, and I'm not saying Justin Fields has like lit the league on fire. He's shown to be a lot better, and he's a mobile quarterback. Seems like the exact type of quarterback Arthur Smith would want. That's what it's like. The Patriots with wide receivers, whatever they're doing pre-draft, they got to start doing the opposite. And they should have started doing it like 15 years ago, but they haven't. That's where it's like teams need to self-scout. Steve's a big self-scouting guy. You need to self-scout. It's like, hey, we're going to keep doing the same thing just when it comes to draft day. We're going the opposite. Like we've scouted N'Keal Harry. We're not taking him. We're not taking him. We
Yeah,
know it's not going to
yeah.
work.
So this is a very interesting point about teams' blind spots at certain positions, right? I think Arthur Smith's a really good coach, by the way. I think that he's good at what he does. I think that like he's a good schemer. He finds a way to maximize the run game. But I think he has an idea. Like he was very successful coming up in Tennessee when they had the offense with Derrick Henry, and they ended up trading for Ryan Tannehill. Ryan Tannehill had his comeback player of the year season, and you see Ryan Tannehill playing his best ball there. And so sometimes as a coach, you're molded by where you have your most success. And you're like, man, if I can get a quarterback that fits and looks like this when I had the most success, I can be fine. And so it makes me wonder how much you're building your team with the idea of let's capture that running heavy offense with a Ryan Tannehill style of play action passing, efficiency, and maybe you don't have to be Superman, but you can efficiently throw the ball to your playmakers.
I can't be
My
waiting on Ryan
long-term
Tannehill. You're going to be
right,
Tannehill today. I can't, you don't get
right.
2 years to become Ryan Tannehill. But even like you say that makes it seem like the coaching and the front office aren't aligned, because if that's the type of team you're trying to build, why take a Kyle Pitts fourth? Why take a Drake London eighth? Why take a Bijan seventh?
I think it does because think about it. You get Bijan Robinson, so you get explosive playmaker in the run game. You get a wide receiver. They had, Tennessee Titans have always had a wide receiver that had AJ
Yeah,
Brown,
a
right?
singular wide receiver. Yeah, absolutely.
A single wide receiver, right? AJ Brown, right? Everything you're saying. Football coaches are crazy, uber creatures of habit.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
Whatever they do there, they're doing it here.
Absolutely.
Wherever they did it here, they're doing it there. That's
But where,
just what they do.
let me ask you this. Where was Derrick Henry drafted? Well, what round?
Second round. That's
Where
true.
was
That
AJ
is
Brown
true.
drafted?
Second round.
Yeah,
That
that's
is
what I
true.
mean. Like Tennessee did
Yeah.
trench work first, and
Yeah.
Atlanta has a really good offensive line. So obviously
They
that's
do.
not an area they need to hammer, and they have drafted in the first round there as well. But the
Mhm.
defensive line, I mean, for the last 4 years, and it's been better this year, but for the last 4 years overall, really Arthur Smith's entire tenure there, they've been the worst pass rushing unit in all of football, like
Absolutely.
by
Yeah.
far.
All right, let's move this along. Who needed to win more? San Francisco 49ers or the Cincinnati Bengals? Man, for me, I think I don't think either one needed to win more. I think both teams needed this win. And and the reason I say both teams because if the San Francisco 49ers would have lost, and the way they had lost, the way things have been going offensively, now people are saying Brock Purdy can't play. Look, I think Brock Purdy can still play. I think Brock Purdy is now in his first full season. So you're seeing the typical up and down of the season that people are not, for whatever reason, they believe that he wasn't going to have an up and down season. Debo Samuel's not being in the lineup has really hurt them. His presence on the field. Jawan Jennings can play, but he's not Debo Samuel. It just does a lot of different things and it hamstrings their passing game. I'm going to put this out there and I'm going to say it. The glaring thing that when I was watching a football game, when have the 49ers had a first round corner? And the reason I say that is because the last 3 weeks, the defense, this is a top two, top one defense in the league. But the San Francisco 49ers under Kyle Shanahan, under John Lynch, have gone about creating their defense with the front seven is a staple. But I'm talking about a first round guy that can lock somebody down, that can eliminate that side of the field, or at least make you not have to have Tums at 10 drops at a time throughout the quarter, right? And let me get into it. So right now, Lenore, fifth round draft pick, Isaiah Oliver, free agent from Atlanta, right? High draft pick, second round pick from, I believe, Purdue, Anthony Brown. Haven't really seen a lot of him. And so I'm not, now I'm getting on my P's and Q's because, when I start talking about players now, people getting in their feelings. The dude that's getting picked on is Isaiah Oliver.
Mm-hmm.
Bro, 5 different receivers were targeted for 71 yards, 4 first downs, and 2 touchdowns. 100% when targeted in week 8, 100% of the receivers are catching it. Week 7, 4 targets, 4 catches, 100%. Week 6, 3 catches, 3 targets, 100%. They need a number one lockdown, non-cover hiding corner to play with Lenore. Who can play? To play with Tre'Davious Ward. Who can play?
So, Steve, this is not the last year's 49ers team. And, what's interesting about the way they built, it seems like they made an intentional decision to prioritize pass rush over coverage, right? And some people believe by analytics that is the better philosophy. But when you do that, you open yourself up to teams that can beat your pressure consistently, can exploit your corners. And watching that Bengals game yesterday, Joe Burrow went 10 for 10 when under pressure for 136 yards and a touchdown, nearly a perfect passer rating. So they were getting pressure with Boza and Hargrave and all the dudes they spent a lot of money on up front, and he was still dicing them. That's what the elite quarterbacks do. You're going to get in my face, you're going to get pressure on me, but I'm still going to beat you. And so that to me is the issue. Not that the core of their team has changed. They've really doubled down on what the core of their team is: pass rush, pass rush, pass rush. Teams are just exploiting their weakness, which what you mentioned is the coverage.
That's not gonna work. And I believe right now, without having that elite corner, they kind of put themselves at a disadvantage and is now starting to mess with the offense because the offense can never have a bad day.
I think to answer your original question, I think this is bigger for the Bengals, but one brief point about the 49ers before I want to get to the Bengals. The 49ers were viewed as if not the favorite, the co-favorite with the Eagles for
because
the
of the
NFC.
defense.
Right, because of the defense. And now we've seen them lose 3 straight games. And I think there is a serious question of whether they're even the best team in their division right now. The Seahawks are playing great ball, and they just made a trade for Leonard Williams to improve their defensive line, which was maybe one of their biggest weaknesses. And so I think that you're seeing without the defense being the best defense in the league, the offense being exposed to an extent. And that's why I think the Brock Purdy talk is interesting, because a lot of times when you have the quarterback like Brock Purdy, when things are going right, when your defense is playing well, when your weapons are healthy, he can be one of the most effective quarterbacks in the league. But what happens when those other things start to break down? The defense starts to struggle. You lose Debo for a game. You lose Trent Williams for a game or two. Who are you? And I think that has been the biggest question with the 49ers. And during this 3-game losing streak, we're really seeing that. Now, on the other side, I think this is huge for the Bengals. Um, First of all, Lou Anarumo, the defensive coordinator for the Bengals,
Who should be up for a head coaching
who
job
should
as
be up
well.
for a head coach
Oh,
opportunity.
so good.
And thankfully for his sake, he didn't take the Cardinals gig. He'll get a better gig this upcoming offseason. Um, but he called in a tremendous game. And he has been great all season. Remember, they replaced their two safeties, Jesse Bates and Von Bell, and they were the communication of this defense. A lot of
Yep.
times you expect a struggling transition. They have not had those struggles. They got 2 picks off Brock Purdy, 3 turnovers. Cam Taylor-Britt has been incredible on the back end. Mike Hilton had a really strong game. This Bengals defense really has carried the offense early in the season when they've struggled to find, like when Burrow's been trying to get healthy. Now he's back. But over that period, they carried them. And why that win was so big is you look at the AFC North. It's the only division in the league that has every team with a winning record. The Baltimore Ravens are 6-2. They're starting to run away with that thing. If the Bengals lose that game and drop to 3-4, they're 3 games back on the Ravens at the midway point of the season. That's a hard gap to make up. And we know in that division how key it is to have home field to be able to win your division. And so I love the way that they responded and played on Sunday. They needed that. They needed that. And now that team becomes dangerous because Burrow's healthy. The offense is starting to roll, and they can kind of attack their second half of the season. I think the Bengals, once again, are probably one of the 2 or 3 best teams in the AFC.
That okay. So let's jump into it. You got Miami coming up in there. You got Jalen Ramsey comes back, right? Gets an interception, first game back from injury. Coach McDaniels, his coaching style is ridiculous, just what he's doing. But Tyreek Hill, he's on pace um, to break Calvin Johnson's record, and looks like it. And I think he has such a great opportunity to do it. So for me, I think Tyreek is a front runner for MVP. But I have to ask it like this because uh, sometimes the receiver is doing such a great job that people start to throw the quarterback in there. So is it Tyreek Hill as MVP, the front runner, or will it be a 1-2 voting between Tyreek Hill and Tua Tagovailoa?
That's a great question, and one that has been huge in the Dolphins fan base. Because if you know anything about Dolphins fans, they are going to defend Tua to the death and tooth and nail. And so anytime you say anything positive about a Tyreek Hill or someone else, they're like, wait, nope, that's Tua. Um, the reality is they may end up being right because the MVP is a quarterback award. It's always been a quarterback award. And so although Tyreek is doing something impressive, I do think that at the end of the day, if Tua stays healthy and is the one delivering on the passes and is not throwing the interceptions, he would probably still get it over Tyreek if it's him or him. So I'm curious, like from your perspective, Steve. Like obviously you've been the elite receiver that teams have game plan for. What is that like? What is that responsibility? What is that pressure like? Taking that on and still producing.
The production obviously is there with Tyreek Hill, and he's on pace to produce in a way that no one has ever produced. So I don't know what that it's like, but what I do know what it's like is when you have a head coach, when you have a play call
Mm.
who is dialing up plays to get you in the zone that quickly. And I'm not talking about the end zone. I'm talking about the zone to be able to slow the game down at a pace that is more is like Matrix. You can start to see so many little nuances of the game and what the defense is doing. And then now you go in motion. And when you're going in motion, right, you start off lined up behind the tackle, the left or right tackle, then you go in motion, you either get to go back and then you hitting hitting a play on the run. And they're giving you the opportunity to run, go in motion, and you get to run a curl. You get to run a quick out. You get to run an in. You get to run a post. You get to run an angle route. All of those things now, it's like you become a shooter. All of a sudden, you're just getting a pass, and you can just throw it up, right? So you're just starting to throw it up like, boom. I know they're gonna run that screen, right? And so when you have a play caller that is dialing up so much success, man, it builds your confidence to walk into the game on Sunday, Saturday, Monday, Thursday night, in a couple of weeks, in this weekend in Germany where I'll be, that you get to just say, hey, I'm here. I know I'm getting 25 plays with 75% of the motion that's going to be at my advantage no matter what you do on defense. Bro, that's a great feeling.
Right? It's incredible. I hadn't seen anything like Tyreek Hill season ever. And what's crazy is I remember the narrative when he first came to Miami. It was that he's going to drop because he's going from Mahomes to Tua, right? There's no way Mahomes lifting him up. He can't do this without him, this and that. He mentioned it this week. He said, my game's light years ahead of where I was in Kansas City. Like, he's elevated his game at this age. Like, you know what it is, Steve. A lot of times when receivers get to 30, everybody's like, oh, well, this is the downhill run. Tyreek Hill's 29 years old and having the best season of his career as a speed receiver, which I think is rare. And so it's impressive. He deserves all the credit. And if he gets 2,000 yards, then even if he doesn't win it, he should certainly be in that top 3 of the MVP award. What I think probably is going to happen is Tua or whoever else is the quarterback who's the hottest at that time wins MVP, and they give Tyreek Hill Offensive Player of the Year.
Yeah, he deserves some hardware, kind of hardware.
Well, for people at home, too, if they want to know when the Dolphins offense will be banned, December 31st, they play the Ravens. Harbaugh will be crying like a newborn baby the second the clock hits 0, and it will be banned for the new year. So that's tough for the Dolphins because they'll be walking into the playoffs. They won't be able to use their offense. That's going to be tough.
Oh, my gosh. Hey, Jackson, let's stay in the state of Florida. So mosey on up to Jacksonville. 6-2, third in the AFC. Are the Jacksonville contenders or pretenders?
Contender for me. And I think what makes them a contender is their defensive ability to create turnovers. To me, that was the biggest weakness of this team. Like, I watched them a lot last year when they were making an incredible run. And all of it was like Trevor Lawrence in the offense making incredible comebacks because the defense put them in 20-point holes. Now you're seeing they lead the league in takeaways, which takeaways are such a direct stat to winning and losing. And then their 2 edge rushers. They don't have a lot of pass rush, but their 2 edge rushers, Josh Allen and Trayvon Walker, have been playing really good ball. Josh Allen, who they've been waiting for 3 years to become their elite pass rusher, has 9 sacks. Just so happens he's in a contract year. So maybe that's a coincidence, maybe not. Some of those sacks have been just, kind of touchdown sacks, so he's going to get better numbers than maybe the production, but he's playing great ball. Trayvon Walker's creating consistent pressure. And so that defense really has been, kind of like the Bengals, carrying them through some first half offensive struggles because the Jags changed their play caller to Press Taylor this season. And Jags fans will tell you they had been frustrated a bit through the struggles on offense. They hadn't been quite as crisp as they were on the second half of the season, even with Calvin Ridley. So that defense gives me hope that they're contenders, and I have belief that Trevor and Press will figure it out. So I was chatting with the Jags, and, kind of the slogan that came out was gritty, not pretty. Even this past week, they beat the Steelers. They win 20-10.
Yeah.
They go into Pittsburgh. The defense is going up there smacking. And after the game, they're talking about how they took exception to George Pickens calling them a hope defense. He called them a hope defense because they hope that plays happen. And they're talking at George Pickens. And I'm like, okay, this is a different Rayshawn Jenkins said after the game, I hope they were going to be more competitive. I was like,
he
talking,
said
they
that, I
talk.
was like,
They
when
talking,
he
they
said, I
talk.
was
And
like,
so,
I like it, but this is not gonna go well for Dolphins.
and so I feel good about them. They're going into their bye. We're gonna see. They got to win one of those games against one of the contenders. They lost their last 3 games to the Chiefs in the last 2 years, and so they've got to beat the Chiefs. They got to beat one of those elite teams to get over the hump. And that's my big question about them. Can they beat the Chiefs? Can they beat the Dolphins? Can they beat the Ravens? The Bengals when it counts. I don't know, but I do think that they're one of the teams that we're going to be talking about deep into January.
All right, give us something on the give us something. Give us an intel on the Dolphins and Chiefs. What you got?
Um, Dolphins and Chiefs. The Dolphins should get back safety Javon Holland and cornerback Xavier Howard, who's been dealing with a groin injury. I talked to him in pregame, and he said he planned to be back for the Chiefs game. They've been trying to get him to 100%. And so we'll get the healthiest look at the Dolphins secondary all season. So they'll have Jalen Ramsey, who played 90% of the snaps, 92 actually, in his debut, and looked incredible. His recovery from that knee injury, they're probably going to have to do case studies on it because he's looked so good. Him on one side, Xavier Howard on the other side, and then you'll have Javon Holland, their top safety on the back end. Vic Fangio mentioned it last week. He thinks it's going to change how they call defense with having Jalen Ramsey and Xavier Howard on that side. And so that's been the one question I've had about the Dolphins, other than winning road games against elite teams, is can their defense be good enough when it counts? Because their defense has been kind of and we just kind of haven't cared about it because they're putting up 70 points on offense some
Just
weeks,
true. Yeah.
And so, but the defense, when it comes to January, is going to have to play better. I'm eager to see how that healthy group looks against Patrick Mahomes. They're going to be a little feisty. They lost a game they shouldn't have lost against Denver. They just kind of fell asleep. And so I think you'll see your A-game Chiefs. And so I'm eager to see that matchup, how they match up to Travis Kelce and that Chiefs team. And then the Cheetah, man, the Cheetah's having his return against his former team in Germany, not Arrowhead, but he's planning to put on a show. He said they're going to get Ulrich. So those are probably the 2 things I'm looking at for.
Isn't that a worse player?
Sunday in Germany? Huh?
Isn't that a worse player per Tyreek?
Right, Ulrich. That is true. That is true. He said it, but
that's what I mean.
Yeah, be better. You should see Newrick, right?
Hey, that's what us receivers do, man. We contradict ourselves. Hey, man. Hey, appreciate you taking your time, Cam, man. Dropping that knowledge as always. Hey, yeah, we got the Eagles and Cowboys. Man, it's obviously the Cowboys mollywopped the Los Angeles Rams, right? What I'm going to be watching, what I'm excited to see, but I also kind of am worried is how is this offense going to handle the front 7 for the Philadelphia Eagles, right? Will Dak Prescott have enough time and have a clean pocket to deliver the football?
Yeah, it'll be interesting because it's strange the Washington Commanders are giving up a historic amount of sacks through 7 weeks, but they only got to howl once last week. So if there's something Dallas can steal from what they were doing, and I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I know how the Commanders were beating that front 7, but whether it's quick releases, whether it's short stuff, I know Dak's not as mobile as Howell, but that's not a huge gap in terms of their mobility.
The problem that you can't take from the Washington Commanders is the first time the Philadelphia Eagles played the Washington Commanders. It was pretty much they did what they wanted to do in the pass game, right? The Commanders still have a pretty good defense. The second time, though, the Commanders did do some things that were different. But what did not happen is they didn't make the defense didn't make any adjustments. They kept running the same stuff, even though it was not working. And they benched Forbes, Emmanuel Forbes Jr. They benched him and gave him opportunity. He was having a rough rookie year, and he comes back and he kind of picks up where he left off a little bit. And he's just a rookie. I think he'll be fine. But man, he's in a rough spot right now, and I feel bad for him. And I don't necessarily think it's the player. I just think he's just in the scheme right now. that he's trying to figure out. And the Commanders, just aren't doing him any good right now. And I just hope that they can reduce the bleeding for this young rookie and don't kill his confidence.
Yeah, he's the kind of guy I would still keep running him out there at corner and try and get him more favorable matchups. Maybe not AJ Brown, who's like 3 times the size of him. That was the big knock on him. I think he was like 168 coming into the league.
That's after eating. Like he
That's what I
ate
mean. Yeah, he had
before.
rocks in his pocket stepping on that scale. So that's where it's that's where it's tough. But I wonder if it continues to not look great at corner because he had such good ball skills. I mean, he's the NCAA all-time leader in pick sixes. I wonder if he would be decent at like free safety, something like that, where he's not so much man-to-man, can play some zone, really only focus on the quarterback.
Midseason awards, best team in the AFC. I got the Miami Dolphins. Who do you have?
I've got the Ravens. I like their defense. I like their defense more. And I think I don't want to spoil a future thing we're about to pick here, but I think they've got the single best player in football this year in Lamar Jackson.
The way Lamar Jackson's playing, the Detroit Lions put him on the map right now, saying, "Hey, beat us from the pocket." He didn't beat you from the pocket. He drug you from the pocket. So it wasn't a smart deal by them, but hey, he did a fantastic job of beating them from the pocket. For me, the Miami Dolphins, just with Jalen Ramsey coming back, with Tyreek Hill on pace for 2,100, 2,200 yards, 2,200 yards. That's it's going to be the first time in league history you can get a wide receiver 2,100 plus yards, which is be outstanding. But then also, just the way Coach McDaniels has done such a fantastic job of moving guys around, really creating how you motion differently, how you can make the defense commit and confuse them. He's done such a wonderful job, and I believe he's also maybe for me a front runner as possibly coach of the year.
Mm-hmm.
I have him or Coach Nick Sirianni. Who do you?
So I would lean Mike McDaniel. But also, if I'm Mike McDaniel, I may not want this award. It does not end favorably for coaches of the years historically over the last 10, 15 years. It's one I might be saying, you know what, thanks, but no thanks.
Yeah. Okay. Best team in the NFC. I have the number one. I got the Philadelphia Eagles. Who do you have?
Yeah, I also have the Eagles, their team, 2 new
Ooh.
coordinators, and they're still sitting right there at the top. I would like to say the Seahawks, but they kind of feel a little Jacksonville-y to me. They're winning games, but I haven't been able to point to a game and say that's a win. That's a repeatable win. That's a formula they can use. They're kind of just pulling these wins out and being like, we survived.
My MVP, I got to get it. Is my one. It has to be Tyreek Hill, and then two is Tua. Like one of those, those guys. Who you got?
So I have Lamar, but why? What has Tyreek done that AJ Brown hasn't? And I say that is I understand Tyreek's on this pace. AJ Brown's already broken one of Calvin's records, and we were texting about this a little bit. Tyreek's not getting 2 targets a game, you know what I mean? Like he's getting a heavy target share too. AJ Brown 6 straight weeks with 125 plus yards is unbelievable. And he said on the sideline he went right to Jalen Hurts. He said, "Get me the ball." And he said it a little angrier than that. He said, "Get me the ball." And he's produced. A lot of guys say, "Get me the ball." They don't do nothing with it. He's put that team on his back.
He has put it on his back, but also too, there's also players out there too, like Dallas Goedert, Devontae Smith, who are a little bit struggling in this offense to get targets as well, right? And it's not their fault. It's not AJ Brown's fault. But the reason why I'm saying, Tyreek Hill, one, first of all, you can't go with either one, and I'm only allowed to choose one, right? But we also know, I think if both of them are on pace to have 2,000 yards, the guy who gets there first, right, should get it. That's all I'm saying. Man, the pace that Tyreek won, when you call your shot before the season and it happens, people are watching. And so the fact that he called his shot and he's on pace to do it, I think it's pretty cool. So here's the short though. Here's the short I do want to address though. Let's run this one. Hey, had the opportunity to talk to Coach Doeren, NC State. You can run the highlight of what he said. We've already talked, and my man, he's so perturbed with me and so upset. He invited me on the sideline for this next game that they're playing. I believe they're playing Miami in the evening. But unfortunately, I'll be heading to Frankfurt to cover that.
Fleeing
game.
the country again.
So,
you can't stop fleeing this.
Fleeing the yes.
Catch Me If You Can, starring Steve Smith Sr. Yeah.
But I'll be moseying on down to Raleigh, Durham when I'm back in time permits, and I have a sit down with Coach Doeren. So we squashed everything, no beef. I didn't think we had a beef. I didn't actually say what I got accused of saying, which is I did not say that NC State is a basketball school. I had did my research, and I don't watch a lot of ACC and SEC football because, like Coach said, which I found it actually made me chuckle. He said he obviously is facing West a lot. Yes, I'm pretty sure that's what I am known for repping.
Yes,
is Los Angeles, is the West Coast, is the University of Utah. So he is accurate. I am always facing West because I'm a West Coast dude. But so there's no beef. There's no smoke. There's no hey. There's not a problem. But I get where he feels, and he's protecting his team and his school. And hey, we all do. We all in this business. We're gonna say things that obviously don't sit well with people, and I believe that I've kind of found the knack of saying that in the last couple of weeks, and
and then you flee, and then
yes, and then I run.
You knock the water over on the table, and you get out of the room.
And then I sprint out of the room.
Well, I'm glad that one got patched up because I was ready to hate NC State literally the rest of my life. Like I was ready to wear that one. For North Carolina schools, I've always had Duke at the bottom, the very bottom. Don't respect them, can't do it. So I was ready to slide NC State below them, and I'm glad this got patched up.
Yeah. Hey, it's all good, bro. It's all good. Coach Doeren now, he's right there, and so the real question, so now I text, I text Coach Doeren, congratulations on the win. So now I got to text Dabo Sweeney, sorry for the loss.
Yeah, right? My bad. Yeah,
because I don't want Dabo to be mad at me too, right? You got people mad at me in Raleigh and North Carolina. You got people mad at me in South Carolina. I can't go anyplace, right? Can't do anything. Hey, people, listen. It only takes you 5 minutes. Hit subscribe. It doesn't even take 5 minutes. It only takes boop, hit subscribe. Man, help my family have a nice, good Christmas, okay? Please. I fumbled the bag. I'm only doing media because I'm dead broke. So please help, okay? Thank you.